Ainslie also hosts and directs our annual Q for Clusters 5K for Cluster Busters, a virtual walk that draws participants from across the globe. And Ainslie was a board member with Cluster Busters from 2017 to 19. Ainslie is married to Andrew, and Andrew has chronic cluster headaches, and they now live in Southwest Michigan with their adorable daughter Lucy and their fur babies. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Andrew. So Andrew is a fellow board member of mine, and great guy. He's currently our treasurer. He has experienced chronic cluster headaches for 17 years. And for those who were present for Brian McGeeney's, Dr. Brian McGeeney's presentation earlier, he played an excerpt of a panelist event that Andrew took part in, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. It's incredibly emotional. I am aware of Andrew's journey, but it doesn't matter how often you hear it, it still tugs on the heartstrings. After years of searching for answers and effective treatments, Andrew found Cluster Busters, who gave him a new outlook on life and access to information about clusters that he could not get from his treating neurologist. Andrew has an excess of 5 years' experience in financial management, making him an excellent addition to the Cluster Busters Board of Directors, and he's been our treasurer since 2018. Ainslie and Andrew met some years ago at a Cluster Buster conference, where again, like Rhonda and Dan, friendship developed into love. And I was absolutely honoured to be a guest at their wedding in Denver in September 2018. They got the date right, yeah. They, again, are very well respected and valued members of our cluster headache community. And again, incredibly proud to call them very dear friends and to thank them warmly, both of you, for everything that you do. They're going to chat to us today about what cluster headaches are like as a couple when you both experience cluster headaches. I'd like to ask that our audience members hold any questions until the end. And I'll set it over to Dan and Rhonda first, followed by Andrew and Ainslie. If you two couples want to kind of intermingle when you're talking, that's fine. However you want to do it is good with me.
Thank you.
Take it away, guys. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Take it away, baby.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you, everybody, and Ainslie, thank you especially for that introduction, and also for the introduction to this one. So
Making us cry right off the bat.
Right. The push was from Ainslie, because I actually, when I was at the conference, I wasn't looking to date anybody. So at the shape I was in after my surgery, I couldn't believe anybody would want to date me. So there was I wouldn't date me. So there was no way that I was actually going to this conference with that in mind, or, even one after Rhonda and I realized I was still really scared about having that intimacy with somebody. Since I had the surgery, it had changed my attacks and my pain, and I isolated an awful lot. So I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to be with people, and it was really difficult to accept that she wasn't just a person. It was more than just that. It wasn't me dating a stranger. It was really easy for me to see that she and I were more than just a date. But it was a little difficult, because I didn't want to be the guy that went to the conference and hit on a girl and then went home and you know, saw her next year and we had broken heart or bad feelings or so I didn't want to be that guy. So I was like, I better wait and make sure it's real. And
Plus, we're from two different countries, so, you know, long distance relationships are hard enough, you know, if you're in different states or different provinces, and when you're 2,700 miles away from each other, or 1,400 miles, something like
yeah,
that,
1,400.
you know, it plays a toll. So we didn't stay apart for very long.
So yeah, dating Rhonda was something else because it was like, well, and it's still that way. We don't, a lot of times we don't even have to say what's going on, or, you know, and even not just with my head, but with my head, she'll just look at me or hear me. And she knows, you know, we kind of know that thing. And fortunately for me, and unfortunately for Rhonda, she's been more of a caretaker than she signed up for, because, you know, the development of the anesthesia dolorosa, the post-trigeminal stuff after the surgery. And then I used some couple different medicines, Aimovig and Emgality, and I had some horrible side effects from that. So not only is she trying to care for me with the clusters and the face stuff, now she's got to deal with the abdominal stuff and me waking up at 3 a.m. and having all kinds of back issues. And so she signed up for a lot more than she thought.
And I don't know if people are aware, but Dan has the neurostimulator in his cheek, so he's bilateral. So I just kind of watch and see, you know, since the implant, he's mostly on the right side. So if I see him holding the left side of his head, it's like a kid in a candy store. It's like, oh, we got something for that one, you know.
She's always happy when I have left-sided attacks.
Dan, do you remember saying to me a number of years ago, before you really sort of got to know Rhonda properly, and we were talking about relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but relationships in general, you know, with your family, with your friends. And do you remember saying to me, I could never date a clusterhead?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you also remember saying to me, who would want me with all the things that are wrong? Who would want me?
Right.
And look at you now, you know. you said you would never date a clusterhead, you know, because you always think, you know, well, it's double trouble, you know, and who would want you? Well, Rhonda wanted you, and she has you. So relationships like yours, like Andrew and Ashley's, and several others within our cluster community, they do work because we make them work. I think It's that mutual respect of, as you quite rightly say, looking at each other and just knowing what each other is enduring, you know, and to either, you know, put your hand on the shoulder or to walk away and give space. And that's something that you work out as your relationship develops. But yeah, I just thought I would remind you of that, how far you've come. And I know, Rhonda, you also said, oh, I couldn't date a clusterhead.
Yes.
You know, there you go.
My daughter asked me, like, are you kidding, Mom? Like, would you date you? And it's like, well, he's not like me, he's worse.
Yeah, and that kind of makes you feel, okay, I can deal with this because I'm not that bad. He's worse than I am. Yeah.
And sometimes I do have to walk away, leave the room, and go cry, just because I know, you know, he doesn't need to explain to me what's going on. I know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to remind you of an incident in a bar in Chicago, 2017. on the Wednesday before our conference started, and we went out for lunch, and I think there were about 6 or 8 of us. And Dan, you were not in a particularly good place after your implant surgery. And we were all happy. We were all having a couple of cocktails and something to eat, and how the whole atmosphere changed as Dan very quietly, without any fuss, left his stool and went outside, and the whole table just went quiet. Do you remember, Rhonda? We all looked at each other, and it was like someone had popped our balloons. We all deflated because we could all feel it. We knew it. And you and Dan weren't really a couple then. You were just kind of to know each other. And we were all saying to each other, okay, who's going to go outside and check on him? I don't know if I want to go. And, you know, so we didn't. We just left him. But I'm guessing that's what it's like within your relationship as you live together. You recognise the times where you've got to give Dan a space, and other times where he wants you there, he needs you there. And that can be done without words. Because it's you just sense that.
Yeah, the cluster connection is a crazy thing. Like my first conference, I thought I was going to go and just learn some stuff and go home, and the people that are involved with this group just embrace you, and you know, it's people that understand you, and you don't have to explain, and you know, it's a family you didn't know you had.
Yeah. Exactly. There's just there's an understanding there between our whole community without the need for words, you know, without needing to say, I need to step out of the room. As I say, Dan just, you know, very discreetly and quietly. Well, he thought it was discreetly, but of course we're all watching him, you know, as he goes outside. And our conversation just died because even although, you know, the table we're not romantically involved with Dan like you are, as fellow cluster heads, we feel that, we sense it, we see it, and you know, you just sort of try to give the space that you need, which is what you do with Dan within your relationship, and that works both ways. Dan, when you're not hurting and Rhonda is, you know, you have that sixth sense to know, does she need me, or does she need me just to close the door and leave the room and know that I'm there for her if and when she does need me, you know? So can we now move over to Ashley and Andrew to share a little bit about their experience, and then maybe if we've got time, both couples can lead from there.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it. You got notes.
I did take notes. I wasn't sure what to expect. So we met at a Cluster Busters conference. Like Rhonda, I came to the conference expecting to just learn and soak in as much as I could. And Betty Wilson introduced me to Andrew at the first evening reception, and we were friends for a few years. And then we went to Headache on the Hill together and shared a room, which was, I mean, inevitable. And Bob actually gave us the push to become a couple. And we were long distance for a few months. I was in Denver, Colorado, and he in Michigan. And then I moved here and work from home. But the biggest thing for me was I feel like I can speak for a lot of us when I say that I've lost relationships and friendships to cluster headaches. And it's really hard when you're in that much pain and the person you're with doesn't believe you. You know, I had one person, you know, one boyfriend who thought sex would cure it. You know, and the having to cancel plans was always a hard part of relationships. Like at one point I missed a funeral, and the person I was dating at the time just couldn't understand that, even though I was in the car crying from pain. So I knew that I needed to be with somebody who understood what I was going through, and I luckily found that. And just like any other relationship. We have a small child, so we definitely have our ups and downs having a 10-month-old baby. But I think with the cluster headache aspect, we do pretty well understanding each other.
Yeah, for sure. I had been going to Cluster Busters for a few years because I was pretty young when I started. And I don't know, I think my first year I was like 17 or something like that. So I was probably one of the youngest people who was going to the conference at the time. And as the years went on, it was great because there were more people, more younger people that were coming, which was awesome because that meant that you know, word was getting out and more people were getting that support. And yeah, I met Ashley. She was doing research for a book, and we just, you know, we were like two of the only people our age at the conference. Well, I mean, there's like maybe like 5 or 6 people our age. So we like, you know, we stayed in touch, and that was really awesome. And you know, it's been one of the most valuable relationships of my life. You know, I have been with people who just did not understand. Maybe didn't want to understand. And so, you know, after having, you know, really bad experiences with past relationships, I just decided that, you know, I didn't care if it took until I was, you know, 60 or 70 years old. You know, the person who I was going to be with was going to have some sort of connection to cluster headaches, whether they were, you know, someone who had a relative who had that and just, you know, had some sort of understanding and just acknowledge they were real. So it was really great to meet someone who had it. It is awful to see the person you love suffer. That's really tough. But at the end of the day, there's really no one else who you'd rather have be there for you. So it's one of the most rewarding things for sure. I love you.
We love you too.
We do. We
I wish we
do.
were all in person.
Yeah,
I know.
everyone here was at our wedding. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a best wedding ever.
It was fantastic. And you know what? Not a drop of alcohol crossed my lips. You guys know, being in Denver, I had this little bit of elevation sickness and I didn't drink. I didn't have to. It was brilliant. I danced my socks off. It was so good. And we had our famous cluster dance.
We did.
Where
Yeah, we did.
I
Yeah.
and Ashley were in the middle, and all of the guests that were there from the cluster family,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
just all gathered round, we all hugged, and it was Unchained Melody was the song. Yeah.
Oh, Lynette. Oh, Lynette.
It was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. Up on the top of the Denver clock tower.
Yeah.
It was a truly magical day.
Yeah.
And the next cluster wedding, I will be a bridesmaid. Right, Dan and Rhoda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from cluster headaches, Ashley and I share a deep love for all things Harry Potter. So
Who also has cluster headache?
yeah, Daniel Radcliffe
He
had
does.
cluster headaches. So anyway, when we got married, we decided that it was really important to us that we have our cluster family there, but we figured it was also really impractical to try and ask these people from all over the country to make 2 separate trips to 2 different locations. So we planned our wedding the weekend before the conference so that we could have, you know, as many people as possible from our cluster family there. And it was awesome. So talking about that cluster connection and the people you meet, they become your family for sure.
Yeah, our officiant was Todd.
Yeah.
I don't know if Todd is attending, but he also has cluster headaches. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but I'm episodic and Andrew is chronic, similar to Dan and Rhonda. So that has like unique challenges, I think, too, because it's hard for me to fathom what it's like to be in pain every day. And like, I haven't had an attack since, well, I've kind of been getting those shadows, but I haven't had an attack since I gave birth. But it wasn't right after I gave birth. It was
Awesome.
the first 2 weeks. And you kind of forget about how awfully painful it is. And so I'm reminded of that once or twice a year when I go into cycle, but for him, that's his every day.
Yeah, but on the flip side too, being chronic, you know, I deal with it every single day. So, you know, I think that a lot of us have like maybe a little bit of a different baseline because we, you know, may have to push through a lot more, you know, to get through our day, like with work or school or whatever it may be. And because of that, sometimes I think we get on autopilot and sometimes might be able to, you know, conceal it a little bit more. And so, you know, it's hard for me to remember sometimes that for someone who doesn't deal with it every day, that when it starts, you know, ramping back up, that it is such a significant shift in their day to day, and it has such a severe impact on just like their overall, you know, general happiness and just everything. So, you know, it's really important for both of us to communicate that stuff, just like in any relationship, but especially when it comes to like being in cycle, or if I have an especially bad attack, you know, I have to be able to communicate that, because, you know, when you see the same thing every day, you know, saying like, oh, I have an attack, most of the time doesn't mean I can't bring in the groceries, you know, like I'm still like doing those things. And so when you have a really bad one, it's like you still got to just kind of speak up, because it's like, okay, and you know, like this one right here is that I got to like take a seat or go lay down.
Okay, so we have a question, and I need to ask you, who, Andrew and Ashley, this is directed to, who handles the spicy chip challenge better?
Oh, let
me.
me tell you, she 1000% can. There's no question about this.
Right.
We got wings one night, and we each got a different flavor. And, you know, we're just like watching a movie or whatever. And she's just like, you know, eating them like regular, just kind of going through them. And I was like, wow, okay. And she says, oh, do you want one? I said, sure. You know, and I didn't really think anything of it because she clearly was not impacted by these wings at all. And I took a single bite and immediately felt it. So I like tried to tough it out and eat the rest of the wing, which I did. But I will not lie to you guys, like tearing, snotting, like I had my head in the freezer. I had ice in my mouth. I was crying, and I'm like, how is she not affected by this? She actually is on the wall of like fame or whatever at a local wing place. Her and one of our friends ate like a plate of this wing spots like hottest sauce or whatever and got on the wall. So I will not be hyper masculine here. She 1000%
And now he won't try anything that may even be spicy.
She'll out eat anything spicy.
Yeah, I was going to attempt to try it when we were all in Dallas, but after watching what happened to David Rhodes.
Yeah. After
Yeah.
seeing how it impacted her, I was like, no.
For me, it was
never.
the milk. The milk I was given was warm milk in Texas air. Like whether you've had a spicy chip or not, don't drink that.
Yeah, you did really well, because I was watching you very ladylike and delicately nibbling away on this chip, and I thought, oh great, you know, I might try this, but I will never try this. I don't think I could handle it, but yeah, go Ashley. Are you guys still with me?
You bet.
Yeah, someone sent me a direct message, so I wanted to let them know how to contact me off of this.
So guys, if you could give any advice to anyone out there who's watching us just now, or who will watch the recordings, thinking of embarking on a relationship with someone who has cluster headache, whether it be episodic or chronic, do you have any advice that you could give them to make things a little smoother, you know, in those initial stages of embarking on a double cluster head relationship, for want of a better phrase?
Well, you know, I think that just like how we talk about it between like cluster headaches and migraines and respecting each other's pain, you know, we only experience our pain, and yes, we all experience the worst pain, and we have that universally in common, but we don't know, you know, exactly what it feels like for our partner. So whether you're both chronic or both episodic or the opposites, you know, I think it's really important that if someone says like, oh, that doesn't work for me, that you respect that, because it's natural to want to help that other person, But
Right.
we also know that when we're the ones suffering, if we say no, we mean that.
You mean
And so
no.
I think it's important to try and put them first and try and, hold back your own desire to fix the problem.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think about too is, you talk about the difference that we experience pain. Rhonda is photosensitive. She can't be around light, and noise really bothers her. And it doesn't bother me. So it was kind of really weird for her to, she shut the light off or turn the TV off, or I told her, no, you don't have to. That doesn't bother me. But for me, I walk in the room and she's laying there hurting, and I turn on the light to look for something, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Because then she because so I forget about that, because I haven't been sensitive to light since I was like in really bad migraine attack, but the light and sound doesn't bother me. But with her, she can yell at the cat for being too loud walking across the floor or the light shining in the room. So I have to remember that too.
And we've been lucky, like I'll get hit, then he'll get hit, and then I get hit and he gets hit. We very rarely get hit at the same time. So we've been lucky we can support each other that way. And when we did get hit at the same time at the conference, we ran into Andrew and Ashley in the elevator, and I didn't even remember seeing them. And then when we were all done and it was over, I'm like, I want to go downstairs and see if Andrew and Ashley are here yet. And Dan just looked at me. He's like, we seen them in the elevator, But that was the only time that we got hit at the same time.
Yeah.
Was that
I
year.
guess it's just about sort of working out and getting to know that person and knowing their pattern. And as you say, you guys, knowing when to be there and when not to be there, what to do and what not to do. And that will differ, of course, from couple to couple. That's only natural.
If I could add communication, like Andrew was saying, he handles his daily attacks really, really well, but there are 2 times a year where it gets really bad for him, and I don't always pick up on that right away.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just really important to communicate to the other person, like, hey, I'm suddenly in cycle, or I'm ramping up for high cycle, and I need more time than usual.
Yeah, and
Right.
sometimes I think, Rhonda's been more aware, like, hey, because for me, I don't get them the same time until I start to go into a cycle. So fall and spring, I'll start every night around 9:15 or 9:50, and she'll note that, and because they'll start. And at the same time every night, and I'm just so used to having one, she's like, okay, you're starting to get a pattern here. Now it's time to bust. And I wasn't even aware of it. I'm like, what do you mean? And this is 3 nights in a row. So she's more aware of that than I am. Me, on the other side with her, she's, I think,
Mostly nocturnal too.
And when she's starting a cycle, she's more in denial about it. So I have to tell her, hey, no, that's a headache.
I think the key word here from both couples is, empathy, understanding, and reading each other, reading the other person's needs. I have a couple of questions. And this question is actually for cluster mothers. And the question is, how do you manage the attacks whilst pregnant? And Ashley, as you were most recently pregnant with gorgeous Lucy, maybe you would like to answer this. And did you have a certain plan on getting pregnant at a certain time of year around your cycle?
Well, we actually had 2 miscarriages before we had Lucy, so we were just trying to make one work. I did have a 9-week cluster headache cycle in the 2nd trimester. And, you know, I have a great support team and a wealth of knowledge and other cluster headache people. And Dr. McGeaney was great about answering all of my questions.
Sure.
Ultimately, I only used oxygen. I didn't get to the point where I needed to use sumatriptan. Oxygen worked great for me. I did have a big hiccup with the oxygen company in Michigan, where they realized my prescription was expired and had been for 2 years, but they were suddenly going to stop refilling my oxygen. So I got on the phone with the CEO, and now I get my oxygen 50% off.
Not a
And
girl.
yeah.
Go girl.
Don't let them tell a pregnant lady you can't have your treatment.
Yeah.
So, but the sumatriptan like was my backup, and so was melatonin, but my OBGYN, she was very against it. And had I been in a worse place, if oxygen wasn't working for me, I would have pushed that, because I know that triptans are safe for pregnancy.
Yes.
Like given the information that we do have on it. And did I answer the question? Was there a second part?
You did. Now, she also was able to use that experience with the oxygen company as a really great advocacy event, because her talk with the CEO resulted in, you know, her sending him a book, him actually engaging with that book, and
helping with
results.
CMS.
Yeah, and there was some help with CMS. He also mentioned that he was going to, you know, educate the staff on cluster headache for future cluster headache patients, which, I mean, hopefully, which, you know, realistically probably won't be that many. We live in a relatively small area, but you know, still a great example of how, you know, even in a bad moment, you can turn it into an advocacy moment too. So.
Yeah, because I don't want the next pregnant woman or just next patient in general to face, you know, we already have so much trouble getting an oxygen prescription. It shouldn't be so hard to fill it and get it. So now he said that they're supposed to give you leeway, like they will fill it this time, but before your next refill, you need an updated prescription. So yeah, it did turn into a win. But
Yeah,
it
before
was
you
a
get
really
pregnant,
long
make
3
sure all
days.
your prescriptions are up to date.
Don't wait until it's your last tank.
Learn from us.
Well, I think we're just kind of almost on our time, guys, and I have to flip over to my next session. But thank you both very much, as I say, for everything you do for Cluster Busters, for all the wisdom and knowledge and experience that you share with our community, and all the work that you guys do behind the scenes that nobody knows about. I just want to make sure that, you know, you're recognised and respected for that work, because you guys, even whilst you're hurting yourselves, are always there for our community at any time of day or night. And it's wonderful to have people like that on board. But more importantly, it's wonderful to have you guys as my very dear friends. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing a bit about your journeys with clusters and your relationships. It's a pleasure to know you, and pleasure to see you so much in love. And hopefully next year, if not before, I'll be able to hug you all in person without a mask.
We sure hope so.
We hope so. Too.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.